Welcome, everybody. And Christine is outside in her yard earthing. And when you do that, by the way, it immediately reduces the inflammation in the body. It's amazing. Christine probably knows all about it, but that's the earthing is really good. Grounding is very good for yogis because we're always going up. We do the Om Japa and the energy starts going back towards the brain. All of the processes that we're doing help to engender that movement of energy and consciousness back towards the brain. And sometimes it's too much. And if you're up in your head a lot, like when I came to be a monastic, I was up in my head a lot. And when I started having Kundalini reactions, the total of that became too much and I couldn't balance it. And it's only when you can't balance it that it becomes a problem. So I would get splitting headaches sometimes. And I really had to be careful with the amount that I meditated and the amount that I talked to my friends about spiritual matters, because all the energy would go up. I'd get so excited, all the energy would go right up into my brain, and then it would all focus in this powerful first knot reaction, and it would reach the point sometimes where it felt like the two hemispheres were going to split. They weren't, nothing like that, but it was very unbalanced, and so I had to learn to ground a lot. So that's very cool that you're grounding. And forks over knives, huge health advantages. Awesome. Whole plant food diet. Fantastic. Thank you, Joffrey. All righty. So we've got a bunch of questions that I'll start with, and then I'll dig into the comments on the right. Anybody can say anything at any time. If you use that little raise your hand icon, I might not see it. But you're welcome to try. And if anybody sees that somebody's raising their hand and I miss it, please let me know. And so Timothy says, I've recently run into some information regarding customized practices based on the 5 elements and the specific areas that are needed for individual advancement. It seems that in today's world, it is not too practical to offer individual spiritual practices, so a one-size-fits-all has been adopted. From a practical perspective, this makes a lot of sense, but I do wonder if in the past was individual spiritual practice a thing? Are these practices a result of modern times? That's a fantastic question. So, first of all, you got to know what you're doing, and you've got to know what the practices that you're doing, what they create, what they do. And when you have all of that, so if you're going to be a Kriya guru, you ought to know, it's also very practical for you as a student to know, okay, this is doing this and this is doing this. But especially if you're going to be a Kriya guru, then you ought to know what each of the practices are going to do. And it's not that you have to know every single detail, but you have to have a rough idea of what each practice is going to do. And then you can assign different pieces to different people. And so I do that very often. And Lahiri Baba did that very often. So he had some people come to him, and he said, all I want you to do is Mahamudra. And I want you to do that religiously every day. And he would have them go away and do that for a very long time. Sometimes it was only Navi. So sometimes I get people who are getting a fear reaction. So either they're having bad dreams, scary dreams, or they're going into meditation, they're having negative visions. It doesn't happen very often. It's actually a sign that you're doing very well, that you're getting very deep, because as you go over to the right hippocampus, what is glued onto the right hippocampus is the center of fear, the right amygdala. And so you're going to the right, and there's the right amygdala, right? And how can you avoid it? Well, you can't. That's why we have this insurance policy built in of the Om Japa in the chakras and the Navi Kriya and the balancing of the Mahamudra. So when I get a student who starts encountering a little bit of that fear, or a lot of that fear, then we drop all of the Kriya and we only do Navi. And I'll prescribe that for a month. Like, don't do anything and just do Navi for a month. So you've got to know what each piece is doing for you. And Navi is going to shrink the right amygdala very wonderfully. And so if you have any kind of fear, this is good for all of us. We have any kind of worry, any kind of anxiety, any kind of fear, then we can just do a bunch of Navi and it will help. And it will help right away. Within a week, you'll see a tremendous difference. So I have a student who I love to talk about, and he had night terrors from childhood. And then he started doing Kriya, and some of that came up in his practice and in his dreams. And so I told him, stop everything, just do Navi, do it for 1 month. He came back in a week and he said, it's all gone. All the fear is gone. In 1 week. Can you believe it? Oh my God. So knowing what the pieces do isn't that awesome? Thanks, Linda. And thanks, Christine. I saw that. So it's really, really powerful. And sometimes for some students, I will prescribe the second Kriya, or I will prescribe a particular practice. Or one of my students came to me, he says, you talk about bliss a lot, and I don't think I'm getting it. I'm like, okay, good. Go back, and I want you to do the cute baby meditation every single day. And all he did was 5 minutes. So he did what I said. He didn't go gonzo. He did something which he believed was sustainable for him. And he did 5 minutes cute baby meditation every day. And he used his chihuahua. So he did cute chihuahua meditation every day, 5 minutes. 1 week, I believe it was 1 week, he came back and he said, I've been seeing the spiritual eye for a long time. And now I'm getting bliss through the spiritual eye for the very first time in my entire life. And that just blew me away. That was 5 minutes, and that was it. Not an hour, not 3 hours. 5 minutes of the cute baby meditation, and suddenly bliss is coming through the spiritual eye. So when you understand what all the pieces do and how the brain works and how the whole system works. So 5 elements, that's all your chakras. And if we were to prescribe only one chakra, that can be good. So a lot of times, I just like to concentrate on my lower 3 chakras. So I might do, because what will happen to me, I will get the tranquil breath and the freeze response and the roll up of consciousness if I do the whole Kriya, if I do the whole program. I will get all of that so fast that I will not feel complete. It's like, I want to go back, and I think I need to do some more work in my lower chakras. I really do. And it's too fast. I'm already gone. You understand? And so I will just do Om in the lower 3 chakras, and then I'll have a roll up into the heart, and then I'll start doing it here, right? I'll start Oming into these chakras. So Kriya is very adaptable, but it does have a main frame that Lahiri taught, and that the Panchanan lineage then, over time, they simplified some of it, and they, but everything which is original is still there. And that original plan was from Lahiri Baba and Panchanan. They actually worked on some of it together, and some of the higher Kriyas from the 4th Kriya on. Panchanan and Lahiri worked on those together. And so, which most people don't know. So it's very adaptable, but the core of it is for everyone, because everybody is, assumedly, is trying to reach liberation or moksha or freedom, whatever you would like to call it, the Dharma Mega Samadhi. That's what we're looking for in the end. And so it's a one program fits all of that. And so you've got to get into the dorsal vagal. You've got to do that. You've got to lower the idol, because otherwise you'll never put your mind on expansiveness correctly. You'll never put your mind on bliss correctly, because you're too frazzled. So you've got to lower your idol. So you have to do the dorsal vagal. So that's number 1. That's the long breathing. That's holding the breath occasionally. All of that is necessary. So you can't skip that, right? So that's one size fits all. And then you've got to do the Om Japa in the chakra because you've got to clean everything out, because otherwise you're going to get stuck and you will not have a roll up into the brain. So it's like, if you're going to go up into the brain, that's everybody. You want that clarity and you want that larger consciousness, because that's the place where you can go into the non-dual state. And the non-dual state will come back and affect your consciousness. And so that's a one size fits all. You've got to do all those chakras. And you've got to clean yourself out enough that you begin to feel bliss. And you've got to notice expansion. And so that's everybody. Everybody needs all of those skills. And that's why I like to say, don't worry about time. Don't worry about your Kriya numbers. I mean, Kriya numbers are great. Don't get me wrong. Long meditations are great. Don't get me wrong. But I see all these yogis who are manic about those little things. And it's like, dude, do you not understand? All of this is skill. All of these are skills. And you got to have those skills if you want to complete the whole program. And not everybody wants to complete, not everybody has to complete the whole program. It's like, maybe I just want to relax for like 5 years. And I'll talk to you about moksha in 5 years. Wonderful. I'm totally on board. I love it. But if you want the whole program, you want to complete that whole program, then you need all of those skills. And that's what Kriya, which I think that's what your question is about. That's what Kriya is for. Kriya is accomplishing that program. And so you need all those pieces. And so the place where Kriya is adaptable is the place where, okay, I've run into some concerns. I've run into, it's not balancing perfectly for me. How can I further balance this and bring the program into focus? Okay, that's when the Kriya becomes adaptable. And maybe it's like maybe you're going along in your practice and it gets a little stale. One time I was in meditation and out of nowhere, Divine Mother goes, "You're a little dry." And I'm like, what? I mean, like the one thing you don't ever want to hear from Divine Mother, right? You're a little dry. It's like, oh, sorry. Let me go and fix that. Because that's a little embarrassing with Divine Mother. I was not embarrassed. I thought it was awesome. But it was like, okay, this is great. Okay, thank you for the feedback. I am going to, fix that. I'm going to get myself back into this. And so sometimes we're sticking with a meditative program and it's like, your nose is to the grindstone. Your nose is to the grindstone. And your nose is to the, oh man, I'm so bored with this whole thing. And so you've got to reinvent yourself. And that's why I say, find your holy name, whether it's Jesus or Krishna or Bhagavan, but find your holy name, Divine Mother, Devi, Kali, whoever it is, find your holy name and then go into the chakras and use that holy name. Remember that the Om is beautiful and holy and expansive, and it's the universe. Think about that. Picture, feel the universe and put that into each chakra. Like a cosmic feeling. Put that cosmic feeling into each chakra. Whoa, that will change your whole Kriya. That will change your whole meditation. So now your heart is back in it, right? I showed up. I'm not just, yeah, I'm here. I'm here. And that will change everything. So, that's what Divine Mother was reminding me. And so that's the individual refinement of your practice. And that's where the Kriya becomes flexible, because you don't ever want to be dry. You don't want to ever be a mathematician with God. It's like, so many Kriyas and I did so many Kriyas and you didn't show up. It's like, who says that on a date? It's like, I showed up for 10 dates and you're not doing your side. It's like, that's not a good date, right? And so you can't talk that way to God either. It's really a relationship, and you got to fall in love with it. And your practice as well should be a format or a this is my path to fall in love with the higher self, with the divine. And so you have to be in it to win it, right? Now, I wrote for myself, let's talk about the three lungs, SVS, getting into the freeze response and the tranquil breath. And because sometimes you're like that close. So somebody, I can't remember who it was, but somebody had written something to me, and you maybe you'll hear this and you'll know who you are. And it's like they were that close. And so I just want to say, sometimes I have a video. It's called the 1-inch syndrome, and that was something that we would talk about when I studied Aikido. And you're like there, but you're just 1 inch off. You just need that 1 extra inch. And so it means keep playing in that playground, because it's all going to come together. And so when that is the case, for this particular person, I was going to recommend that they practice the 3 lungs. And so I haven't made a video about this really, but if I take a breath in, and I'm not going to really fill my upper chest, I'm just going to be natural. My clavicles are relaxed. I'm going to breathe in. So all that breath came down here, and now my belly is full, okay? And while my belly is full, I'm going to breathe in some more. And now that's my second capacity within the belly, right? So the first breath in was just a normal breath in. Second breath is really maximizing that capacity. And then the third breath in is going to be a short breath in, and I want to feel down in my groin. And this is subtle, and it might be something that doesn't open up for you immediately, but I want to feel as if there's a little pocket that's down there that's going to open up as well and allow me to breathe into my groin. Of course, I'm not breathing into my groin, but what's happening is the organs are displacing, and I'm feeling that displacement all the way down into the groin. And so you can say that it's 1, 2, and then 3. I'm breathing all the way down and allowing all of those organs to displace. And then I breathe out long, right? And that's the 3 lung exercise. You can do it in a chair. You can do it standing up. You can do it laying in bed. But that practice of opening your lower lungs, opening that capacity in the diaphragm, and allowing the chest to stay restful. So I'm opening everything down here and allowing the chest to stay restful. If it moves, I'm not going to freak out. But I don't want to do this. Like I've watched students show me a Kriya, and they did. And that's totally wrong. You can't do that. You're filling up your chest. You have to let the chest relax and breathe down here. So opening that capacity will help to get the freeze response and the tranquil breath. And these are the skills of Kriya Yoga that we need if we want to go really deep. Now, to go generally deep, don't necessarily have to have that. You can do heart rate variability resonance without that lower range of your lungs, of your capacity. But to get into the tranquil breath and the freeze response deeply and profoundly, we need that lower axis. And so the 3 lung exercise will help that a lot. So Walt said, I recently read a translation of the Bhagavad Gita by Ravi Ravindra. He placed considerable emphasis on buddhi, which he links to the higher functions of mind, like the awareness we call insight or discernment. This buddhi mind rests between everyday mind, the manas mind, and the higher self, and is still part of prakriti. I think about these too much, and then I can't pronounce it at all. Prakriti is nature. So he's saying it's still part of nature. You're still in the world, even while you're up and walking around with buddhi, which is correct. But with some concentration, some connection to Purusha, the soul. In your teaching approach, do you regard buddhi to correlate to an area of the brain or link it to certain brain waves? Yes, I ordered Anna Weiss' book, but have yet to receive it. Absolutely. So the Buddhi mind is so. I love that both Jung and Freud commented on this in their own way. So, so Jung said there's a superconscious mind, and that was too much for Freud, right? That drove them apart, right? Which is hilarious because Freud said you've got an ego in the center. You've got an id, which is like your drives and your cookie monster, right? That's your lower chakras. That's a subconscious. And then you've got your super ego, which is above, which is your high ideals. That would be the Buddhi mind. When you're in the super ego, when you feel a direction or you get a direction from the super ego, which is everything beautiful, honorable, everything high, that's the super ego, right? And so he had 1, 2, 3. And then Jung has said you have a conscious mind, you have a subconscious mind, and you have a superconscious mind. 1, 2, 3. Same thing, different labels. So it's quite hilarious that they had such a radical split when it was Jung was obviously taking direction from Freud and just furthering it with a slightly different language. Excuse me. So you could say that the Buddhi mind is part of that higher self. And some of that, so you can be in the world, in Prakriti, right? You're in nature, and yet you still have direction. You have a download from the higher self. And maybe that download is so profound, it just blows your mind for a moment. You go, oh, right? You're in the Buddhi mind at that moment, right? You're like, oh my God, I get it. You're in the Buddhi mind. And yet you're still here. And then that's also the gamma brainwave, right? That gamma brainwave is so inspirational. And sometimes we get a reflection of that gamma and we go, oh, wow. And so a little bit of that Buddhi mind is coming through. And then sometimes not only is it reflected and we get it, but we actually begin to flip up. The conscious mind begins, nobody knows this. The conscious mind actually flips it. You know a Snapple bottle, right? And you push on the Snapple bottle, and it goes, you make that little sound, right? So your conscious mind wants to be one direction. It wants to be downward towards nature, right? Towards the subconscious and the outward world. But by the process of yoga, you can actually flip that conscious mind and it begins to go into gamma. And so at that point, the gamma, the higher self becomes so overwhelming that you merge in it. And that is the samadhi. And at that point, everything below disappears momentarily while you are in the non-dual state. And so all of that is, so when you're in the Buddhi mind, and there's, could we say it that way? So the samadhi, it's as if you are only the Buddhi mind, but it's beyond that now, because now you realize that the pure essence of that mind. So you're because you go into a samadhi. Let's say you're a novice, you don't know anything, and you just say, well, I'm still here, because you're in the savikalpa. You can still think a little bit, right? So you're in that samadhi. There's, God is spread out around you, either as spaciousness or nothingness or intelligence, but God is spread out all around you. And you are part of that thing that you are swimming in, but you have no body and you have no subconscious. There's just a tiny little bit of thought, and that's the Buddhi mind. So your mind is still there. And you say, oh my God, this is the true me. Whatever is left, everything else is gone. So what is left, that is what I truly am. And that's the whole point of the samadhi, is to realize what you truly are, what the soul actually is. And so we could say that that little part of yourself in the Savikalpa, that's the essence of your mind. And so that's what they're talking about. They're talking about what is the absolute essence of your consciousness, and that is the buddhi. And in the samadhi, you realize that that is the sliver that then turns into what you know of your soul, right? Sat, Chit, Ananda, right? So you realize what that means, what that is. And that's I hope that's helpful. That's the translation of the buddhi into the samadhi, but it's in the gamma, it's in the superconscious mind, it's in the higher self, it's in what Freud said is the superego. So that's the translation all the way. Fantastic question, Walt. Thank you. And then Amber says, 2 questions. How to process begin working through an unhealthy relationship to sexuality, which exists as a result of childhood abuse, trauma. So when I'm doing timeline therapy, my favorite thing to do is whenever you have a problem in your consciousness, it's really a knot. And if it was not a knot, it wouldn't be a problem, right? So it's this big knot, and we're trying to unravel this Gordian knot. And as a therapist, I'm attempting to help you to do that, right? And so what I love to do, my favorite thing, is to ask you, what is the... So if you have a problem, I will ask you to write down all of the issues, all of the negative emotions around that issue. So that's the first thing that I would do. Write down all of the negative emotions around that issue. And if you can get a really... Welcome, John. John, can you click on the little icon so you're muted? Great to have you. And so that's what I would do. I would write down all of the negative... Thank you so much. I would write down all of the negative emotions around that and try and go for the really big one first. And either write about these emotions or do timeline therapy with these emotions, do the walkthrough with these emotions, or just do Om Japa onto these. Or go into Huna Short and Sweet, that video, and do those processes on those emotions so you can get over them. And what happens in timeline therapy, or if we're doing Om Japa, when you take the biggest negative emotion from that Gordian knot and you just pull out that one, a lot of times the entire problem becomes a house of cards and it just collapses. So I will go through a list with somebody of like 15 negative emotions, and I'll go for the big one first because it's fun. And a lot of times all the other negative emotions are resting on that really big negative emotion. We pull that one out and the other negative emotions collapse. And so we'll go back and check. I'll be like, well, what about this one? You said you had this negative emotion about this. Can you feel that now? And they could feel it 5 minutes ago, but we took out the big negative emotion and the whole thing has unraveled. So that's what I would do. I would go through it. I would attack it in that way. And number 2, could you give a brief outline of the 10 types of samadhi from Patanjali? We'll have to do that one another time. Maybe we'll devote something special to that. That's a great question. But very, very simply, the 3 main categories are sahaja. That's where you still have a little bit of your conscious, a little bit, you have reasoning and recollection in the savikalpa. And you are in the center. And everything else is spread around you. You can feel oneness with it, but you know that you're, somehow you know... Yogananda, in his famous Samadhi poem, he wrote, "I cognized myself as the center of the empyrean," right? Is that how you say it? Empyrean? Empyrean. I cognized myself as the center, right? That's the Savikalpa. In the Nirvikalpa, that center goes like this. So you recognized I'm here, and then in the Nirvikalpa, you are the whole. And you can't really think about it. You just, everything is I know. So there's no reasoning and recollection. It's a purely intuitive process of knowing. So you've gone all the way into the right brain. It's only a process of knowing, and that's the nirvikalpa. That's the really deep. And then after that, that process starts to leak into your conscious mind. And that's the recomputation of your left brain, right? And so you start having a little bit of that oneness as you're walking around. And that leaking is the sahaja. So those are the three main ones to understand to begin. So we can draw it out into 10 pieces, right? But understanding that gives you the key. And that's the important thing to start with. Monroe says, I want to talk about skillful ways of dealing with what feels like a struggle for survival on the part of the ego, as effective practice of the Kriya techniques start to suck the oxygen out of the room. So when you are, and that's normal. So I like to say that the Kriya process is, we want the tranquil breath, the freeze response, and the roll-up of consciousness. And I like to say that kind of puts us on the edge of the cliff. And so I imagine that when I have the tranquil breath, the freeze response, and the roll-up of consciousness, that I am on the edge of the cliff and I am looking into the abyss of the divine. And I have to, at that point, I have to let go. I have to surrender profoundly. I have to abandon what I thought I was and accept this vastness, right? And that's what practicing expansion, that's why it's so powerful. Because instead of being like, I have to like surrender or something, it's like, no, I'm just going to, this is the expanse and I'm just going to embrace it. That's why that works so well. And so when you're on that edge, though, sometimes it's a little scary and you're like, really? I'm going to what? I'm going to jump into that? Are you what? And so we have a fear response, which in part is what the Navi is for. So the first answer would be go back and do a ton of Navi, like a whole lot of Navi. Just do a lot of that. And that will help you with that natural freeze response. The left brain goes, this is all I know, and you're asking me to go into the unknown, and that's freaking me out. And so that's where the Navi comes in. And we want to shrink that hurdle of the right amygdala, of the fear response. We want to shrink it down as much as possible. That being said, every single profound experience that I have walked into for the first time has, and I think it's gone down recently, but up until this point, I will say that every deep experience scared me. And so that fear response is natural. That I don't know what is going on right now. That is natural. And being okay with that will help you to relax through the process. So I'm going into the unknown. I'm going into the process. And I know I'm going to have some fear. And that's okay. But it's important to know, I think it's important to know that, okay, so I have a story. A really deep student of mine who regularly goes into samadhi and regularly goes into nirvikalpa samadhi. He had his very first samadhi, and he called me up and he goes, "What is this?" And I said, "That's a samadhi." And he's describing it to me, and he goes, "And then I died." And you might know I talk about this a lot, that I don't particularly care for that kind of a thought process, because it's going to hold you back. It will cause problems if you don't clear that up in your experience of samadhi. You will shy away from the samadhi because you're thinking about this death too much. It's because that's not how it works. And I go, really? What died? I'm like, you didn't fall asleep, right? You didn't fall asleep in the samadhi, did you? Because that would be a stone. No, I was there. I was there the whole time. Okay. So if you were there, what died? And he thought about it. And finally he goes, the words died. That's it. That's right. That's the samadhi. The left brain is gone. The subconscious is gone. But you are still there. There's no death. You get it? So what you thought you were, yeah, you're losing some of that. But that's not you. It's not really you. So there's no death. There's no death in samadhi. There's a letting go of what you were mistakenly thinking was you. You thought, I'm a body, I'm a breath, blah, blah, blah. I'm a story. You're not a story. You're none of those things. You're not a story. You're not a body. You're not a breath. That's junk. That's not you. It's good stuff, right? Yeah, we need it. That's my vehicle. But it's not really you. So there is no death. There's a recomputation of what you truly are, right? That's the soul. That's the Purusha. That's what the whole thing was for, is to refigure out what I am. And so, yeah, there is this sensation of I'm losing something. And it's the subconscious and your story and the drama and the blah, blah, blah and the mud ball we call Earth, right? I came out of samadhi one time. I'm like, oh, man, back to the mud ball. Because you're so high, and then you come back, it's like, oh man, I miss it. Let me go back. But yeah, there is some fear, and that is natural, and don't worry about it. And so do a whole bunch of Navi right before you do your meditation, and then see how it feels. See if it lessens. And when you're walking around, think about what you truly are. I'm not the body. I'm not the breath. I'm just that we talked about the buddhi, right? That's so much closer to the essence of what you are. So put your mind on that. What are my high ideals? What inspires me? What draws me into the divine? What is calling to me? That's what you truly are. I mean, I like how many people do this kind of stuff, right? So profoundly and so, look at you guys, 30 plus of you on your Saturday, listening to this crazy yogi, right? I mean, that's dedication. It's amazing. I mean, so you guys are doing this, right? I love you guys too. And so that is pure dedication. Nobody does this kind of stuff. And so what is driving you? What is calling to you so profoundly? That's what you truly are. Now, Linda had a question. Forrest, what is the functional objective of doing the Yoni Mudra? Why is it important to see the spiritual eye? Because first of all, it's like a guiding post. And so you're going from the left brain to the, excuse me. You're going from the left brain to the right brain. And along the way is the connective tissue, right? That little bit of connective tissue, which we call the corpus callosum, between the two hemispheres, right? And so you're going through that, and you're going from the center of words and talkity talk to the center that holds all knowing and holds all light. And we're going through a tunnel, and along the way, what should happen? But we see a circle of light through the tunnel. And after passing through the tunnel, what happens? We go into the non-dual state. So what is the spiritual eye? Ding, 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 ding. It is the corpus callosum, right? And so you're passing through that. And so it's kind of a guidepost. And first it will be, so you might see it. It might be far away. And then it will get bigger. And it will be right on top of you. And then it will start to go over you. If you are totally mentally relaxed, that will be the progression. Then you'll go through it, so it'll pass like this, and then you'll be on the other side, and it'll be gone. So it's only a temporary. For the yogi who develops the spiritual eye, like, so if it doesn't work out and it doesn't happen for you easily, well, it didn't happen easily for me either. I worked my patootie off to see it regularly. And so, but you don't have to. And I wish I would have known that. Or I would, if I would have known what I know now, I would have stopped. I would have done this much. So I did this much, right? And I would have done maybe a fourth of that if I knew what I know today. And I would have developed it a little, but I wouldn't have worried about it too much. Because the thing that you actually need is you need bliss, you need the dorsal vagal, which you're developing through the long breathing, and you need some bliss. That's why we're cleaning ourselves out, so the bliss is easier to get to. And then the cute baby also is very, very helpful for bliss. And then third, we need expansion. And so you need the surrender that everybody talks about is really expansion. So that's what we want. We want to expand and let go and embrace this bigness, which is the divine. We're trying to wrap our minds around what God is. And the easiest language is something really, really big. The biggest thing you can possibly imagine. That is what that is. And so we're heading into that territory. And so as we get to, I developed the spiritual eye, but I was like this. I was like, oh, here's the spiritual eye. I've got to concentrate like crazy. And that was totally wrong. It's totally opposite of what I needed to do. I needed to see the spiritual eye and then let go and expand with it. And that would allow it to pass me by. And then I'd go past the spiritual eye. So that's the process that Yoni Mudra is saying, well, maybe you would like this. But the Kriya program places Yoni at the end. So we do our Mahamudra, our Navi, and then we do our long breathing with our Om Japa, which is the Kriya. And then we enter into our delicious enjoyment of all of that we have worked for, which is the do and then the be, right? Do, be, right? And so we enter into this being and we let go, which is the Paravasta. And then after we finish with that, I've enjoyed this quite a bit. It was wonderful. And now I'm going to break my freeze response. And now I will do the Yoni Mudra. So it only places it at the end. The real core is everything before. But now we're going to spend just a little bit of time developing Yoni. Maybe we'll have that vision. And then wonderful things can happen out of that. You can get bliss through the spiritual eye. You can get a message through the spiritual eye. I've seen Divine Mother through the spiritual eye. I've seen saints through the spiritual eye. I've seen other people thinking about me strongly through the spiritual eye. And so it becomes this channel, a possible channel for your intuition, and a possible channel for the divine, for the higher self to speak to you. And that's more of the reason why the yogi would like to have the option of the spiritual eye. Now, all of those things can come to you out of nowhere. It's coming through that process, but you didn't notice that the spiritual eye was there. And that can also happen in samadhi. So you go into samadhi and you never noticed the spiritual eye. It was just not there for you. You passed through it, and maybe it was like there was a dark dot and then there was a gray and then you passed through. That was it for you. That was the spiritual eye. That was enough, and you didn't notice it. So it wasn't there for you. That's also fine. So I hope that helps. Perfect. All right.
Hi, Forrest. Can I ask really quick?
Yes.
About, I remember during the retreat in Big Bear, you told us that you use a special prayer to help you go deep before you do the Kriya practice.
Yes.
And I mean, it's been on my mind for a while. I do have my own special one, but I am really curious what you use.
Yeah. So I just say, Divine Mother, help me to go deep in this meditation. And that's my prayer. And you can also use the Guru Stotram, which is we call it the Guru Pranam, which is also okay. And that is talking about the infinite form of the divine. And so putting your mind on the infinite form of the divine is helpful for the yogi when he's trying to enter into the non-dual state. And so any prayer to the infinite form of the divine will also help you. But it's also good to connect from your heart to in a dualistic way, that's also great. So if we're saying a prayer and we want an answer, then a dualistic process will work better for that. But they're both wonderful. So, okay, so I want to go into samadhi. I'm going to pray to the infinite form of the divine. Okay, I'm asking for something. I'm asking for something to appear in my life. I'm asking for a prayer to be answered. I want an answer from this question. Now I'm going to use a dualistic process. I'm going to pray to Divine Mother, Heavenly Father, and so on. So that's how that works, and that way you can direct your prayer for what it is that you're looking for. That's a fantastic question. But when it's a
do you also use do you use one also after as a thank you when you get out?
I certainly do, and that gratitude for whatever it is that you received in the meditation is a positive reinforcement. So it's helping crystallize your intention with the higher self. So the higher self says, oh, he likes this. This was good. And it's also through the subconscious helping to direct you deeper and deeper into your meditation through positive reinforcement. So if I get to the end of my meditation, I go, oh, this really wasn't that good. Well, I'm not helping my subconscious, and I'm not helping the higher self, which is on the other side with pom-poms going, let's go, let's go, let's go. I'm not helping either of those processes. But if instead I go, oh my God, I got hands hot and heavy. And that was it. But man, was it great, hands hot and heavy. Now it's positive reinforcement. And when we start noticing those little things that we received, it's a big deal because we are trying to become subtle and notice subtle things. So when we appreciate the subtle things, guess what happens? We get more subtle things because we start noticing there was this whole spectrum of things that I was not noticing. And the last thing I want to say to you is when you're trying to say a powerful prayer and for an answer in a dualistic fashion to Divine Mother, Krishna, whoever it is, the more it's in your heart, the stronger the prayer becomes. And I have a little hack for that, which is to breathe into the divine. So it's like I can only generate so much love, and I'm afraid that it's not enough love to fulfill the prayer. Then breathe into the divine in the way that I talk about in the Huna modeling of prayer, right? That little video. Breathe into the divine, and you can combine that with the angel exercise. So here's my angel on the left side, and I'm going to breathe into that. So I say my prayer, I feel it with my heart, and then I'm just going to breathe into the divine over and over again, and I'll reach a point where I feel like it's done. And I did that so many times that now it's like Divine Mother's like, okay, it's done. It's done. Okay, you can stop. And then I'm like, oh, okay, it's not quite like that, but it's kind of like that. It's kind of, yeah, you're done. And I'm like, okay, thank you. And then that's it. That fulfills, and now I can let go. And that's the way that prayer works the best. When I leave it really open, when I connect with love, when I connect with the higher self through the angel exercise, and then I breathe into the divine, further creating that connection. And then I finish with the breath, and then I just let go. That is a really, really powerful prayer. Really, really powerful prayer process. It works. And it's one. So that's a really powerful prayer. You don't have to do that every time you're going to sit to meditate. I don't do that every time. When I sit to meditate, I just feel from my heart. I say, Divine Mother, take me very deep. And that's my prayer, usually. Fantastic.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're so welcome. All right. Thomas says, Forrest, where would you like us to be in our practice before we can approach you about working more closely with you? I like everybody to watch the first two trainings, which is the tranquil breath and the freeze response. I'm sorry, the tranquil breath training and the big bliss training. Those two trainings, I like you to watch those. You don't have to master it, but I'd like you to have that information because now you start thinking about Kriya correctly. And so that's where I like everybody to start. And as soon as you do those two things, then just talk to me. And let me know that you would like to learn the Kriya. And thank you, Joshua. Um, Joshua says excellent trainings. Thank you very much. And so that will put you in the correct mind frame of how Kriya. You're now you're starting to think, how does this actually work? What is it actually doing? And it's not just this mythical thing from somebody up on a hill telling you go do this and you don't know why. Now you know why. And so you start looking for, okay, I'm doing this and it's supposed to create this. And you start looking for those subtle things and boom, everything starts working. It's beautiful. So that's where I like everybody to start. And then let me know. I will send you a list of YouTube videos and we just go from there. It's very, very simple. Great question. Thank you, Thomas. And Delphina says, in your video, Building Your Meditation the Best Way, you recommend the 5-minute do, be, do. How can I mark the end of each 5-minute block? If I use an alarm, so don't use an alarm in meditation. I might lose my meditative flow. Exactly. So how can I make a smooth transition? Guess. Just guess. Don't. You're in that beautiful end state of Paravasta, and so you want it really, really easy and really flowy and really enjoying it. And just, it's like I'm here and I'm having fun and I'm enjoying and it's beautiful and I'm the potato sucking up all the beautiful juice of my own meditation efforts, and I'm just going to flow. I'll just flow. I'll do a couple minutes. It doesn't have to be 5. I just said 5 to give a number. So it doesn't have to be 5. It can be 3 minutes. It can be 2 minutes. I'm going to do this a little bit. Then I'm going to do this a little bit. I'm going to do, and then I'm going to be. And then I'm going to do, and then I'm going to be. And sometimes you'll be, and you'll forget time because you're getting towards the right brain. And so you don't have to worry about time. So beautiful question. Cheers. You're a newbie Kriya fan. I love it. And so well done. Fantastic question. And go ahead. Somebody raise their hand. Or did I misunderstand? Maybe you're having a hard time finding your microphone. So pipe up anywhere. All right, this is the last one, and we're probably going to go over because I'm going to answer some of these questions here on the right. And so if anybody has to leave at any time, I totally understand. Steve says, I have 3 questions. When doing Om Japa, should we replace the third eye chakra with the medulla? Yes, if you've been doing a Kriya where you are doing a lot of spiritual eye stuff, the medulla is higher. It creates a deeper practice. So I would recommend that. So it's not that you have to, but I would totally recommend that you switch to the medulla and then use the spiritual eye when you're doing the yoni mudra. And and that will excuse me. As I like to point out, the medulla is the breath center and it is the heart rate center. So by putting your mind on that center, you begin to lower your breath rate and your heart rate immediately. And so you're already getting quiet. And so it will get you more and more quiet as you're doing your Kriya. And so I recommend the medulla profoundly. This is the best advice that I got from Ashok when he gave me the original Kriya. And I realized that the medulla, and if you go into the very, very old, if you know about the SRF lessons, if you go into those very, very old lessons, thank you, Linda. I couldn't believe it. They're just, I was reading something from those very old lessons and it was just medulla, 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 medulla over and over again. So that is the original teaching from Lahiri. And number 2, if meditating for 1 hour twice a day, what order of methods would be most useful? HRV plus BPV plus Om Japa, and then a guided tour, inner child, wizard expansion. How can we manage to get them all into a reasonable meditation period? So I would start with the Mahamudra, very short, 5 minutes. Then Navi, another short one, 5 minutes. Then do some heart rate variability and some blood pressure variability and some Om Japa. And keep the guided tour as a separate practice. So do all of that and then let go. That's the Paravasta. That's where I would begin with that. And then keep the guided tour. Let that be like a separate practice from your normal meditation. Anytime you've got 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes, you can try out that progression, which is the higher self-training progression. And that, excuse me, that dualistic progression will help you with the deep brain centers. Because what I noticed was Lahiri Baba was having very, very easy visions with Kali, with Shiva, with Vishnu. So he had all of that inside of him, and he had all of the necessary pieces inside of him, but some yogis do not. And that's why I created that third train, is make sure all of those are there. We have that ability, and then those things will naturally appear in our lives as we practice the Kriya. So that's why I did that. But you don't have to plug it into your main meditation. And number 3, a technical question. If timing all of the above techniques, how can we do that without causing a distraction, in addition to the app, which I use? The app, excuse me, I'm having a hard time with my voice. The app is to let you know how to do heart rate variability resonance. And once you figure out how to do it, you don't need to use the app in your meditation. You just do what you know, you lower your rate of breath, and it will put you into heart rate variability resonance, and you continue to let go and see if you can get the tranquil breath and the freeze response to show up. And so that will, the app is not designed for that. The app is to let you know how to do heart rate variability resonance, and then you let go of that and you do it on your own and see if you can get into the tranquil breath and the freeze response and the roll up of consciousness through the use of Om Japa. And so, so how do you time all of that? So I would use the heart rate variability resonance and maybe a little bit of blood pressure variability resonance, to the point that I have some of the 4 proofs. And then I would let go and go into the Paravasta. And so that should be those 2 things. I'm going to use these to get 4 proofs, and then I'm going to let go. That should be the core of your practice. And so just try and do enough of the doing so you can get to the being, and do enough of the being that you can enjoy what you got from the doing. And let that be the core, but don't worry too much about time. If you time it too much, it will take you into the left brain, right? And so you're not flowing with it. So you got to flow with it a little bit, and hopefully don't go too long. We don't want to mess up your day. But those 2 core things, if you just concentrate, give those the majority of your time, you'll be on the right track, however much time you devote to it. And that was all the questions. So now I'm going to come over to the chat, and I'm going to start over here. And excuse me, Chitan says, in Paravasta, tranquil breath, my mind becomes more tranquil, less thoughts. When I put it on the sensations felt inside the body, I was wondering if this would be counterproductive, as one of the things needed for a deeper meditation is loss of the body consciousness. Yeah, use it for that less thought. So that less thought is perfect, right? So use it for that, and then let it go. So you want to use it for a while and then graduate, excuse me, into something more letting go, right? Does that make sense? I hope. So use it for a little bit and then continue to let go, and see if you can take it deeper with an expansive or blissful meditation. And now you're moving into more of an immaterial. And let me see if I can answer your number 2. And I would love to hear your thoughts on what role does diet play in an aspiring yogi's life, and how significant is it? If you can reduce the carbs, and if you can not eat before your meditation. So your very best meditation you want to have fasted for 12 hours. So if if you wake up in the morning and you haven't eaten for 12 hours, that is going to be the most significant meditation time for you. Now, maybe it doesn't work out for you. Maybe your life is you just can't do it in the morning. That's totally understandable. You got to make it work for you. That's the first thing, right? And it's got to be comfortable for you. And so then if you can fast for 3, 6, 12, or 16 hours before your best meditation, that is going to help your meditation dramatically. And that's the biggest thing. So carbs, more oils in your diet, kind of more avocados. I love runny eggs, are very good for you, very good for the brain, very good for the lungs. Oils are good for the lungs. They're good for your hormones and good for the brain. The carbs increase your breath rate, and food and the process of digestion will increase your breath rate. So when you can fast for a little bit before your meditation, your breath rate will go way down. It will make your whole meditation a lot easier. And now you had a question. Go ahead. What was the question? Maybe you're having a hard time with the. Or I hope you didn't lose us. So if you can't speak up, then write it down below, and I'll catch you at the end here, okay? And Linda says carnivore works so well for me, especially for grounding. Yes, absolutely. The wonderful thing about that as well is that you can cut out more carbs. Um, Now, carnivore will increase inflammation in the body, so some people will feel even better when they can cut out the carnivore. But I have yogis who are doing either of those, where some are just eating lots of avocados and runny eggs, and then some are eating some meat, and they both work. They both work wonderfully. And Joffrey says, Sri Yukteswar says the human body designed to be vegetarian. He does, and he points out the length of the way that the teeth are set up and the length of the digestive tract, which seems to be, Eros says, carnivore works best for me as well. So yeah, Yukteswar pointed out that the digestive tract seems to be made for a frugivorous animal, and the teeth as well. If you look at what other animals are eating that have teeth that look like ours, it's frugivorous, lots of fruits and vegetables. But I would argue that the human body was meant to survive, and so that is the main thing. But don't worry about what you eat so much as how much are you able to fast, and can you lower the amount of carbohydrates. Joffrey says, I read somewhere that Lahiri Baba...
Thank you, first G.
Oh, there you are. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Actually, that's pretty much my experience when I do a 24 or a 36 hours fast.
Yeah.
I feel like, just with 10 or 12 kriyas, it's very easy to get into tranquil breath. Sometimes even 6 to 8 kriyas, and I kind of see that effect that I can easily get into tranquil breath.
Yes.
That's something what I wanted to check with you. And also, yes, low carbs. And in general, if I've eaten very little, my stomach is empty, I think it's much easier to get into it. Thank you.
That's exactly right. And that's why. So your body can only handle so much. So you put the digestive weight on top of it, right? Maybe you have a cold. That's another weight on top of it. Your immune system, right? So all of these are weight on top of the body. And you've got to take some of that off in order for the body to be able to go into the tranquil breath. Sometimes the body will say, I really shouldn't be going in to the tranquil breath right now because I've got too much work that I'm doing right now. So I don't have the reserves to do that right at this moment. And so that is why. So you've got to be able to take some of the load off, and when fasting will do that beautifully, more than any kind of if you only eat strawberries, they're full of sugar, and that's going to increase your breath rate. So yogis like to say, oh, it's a fruit diet is best, but fruit has a lot of sugar. And so if you're eating a high sugar diet, it's going to increase your breath rate. So the things that lower your breath rate, that's what you really want. And oils are fantastic for that. Avocados, runny eggs, my absolute favorite. And a limiting amount of carbohydrates. Perfect. Thank you. And Joffrey says, I read somewhere that Lahiri Baba told some people to do 50 Maha Mudra at a time. That's right. And they were doing that for health. He would recommend that when there was like a sickness going around. So they would have epidemics of cholera. And he would tell them, balance your body profoundly. Bye. Jonna had to left. So that's why. So how many Navi would he do? Usually 1 to 3 rounds is sufficient. So that's what he would usually recommend. Amber says she had a terrible dream and she took my advice and did Navi. In just a few days, I actually had a dream where I got a resolution on these emotions and was able to move forward with my practice. That's really beautiful. Rajesh excuse me. Oh, man. I apologize for my voice. Rajesh says, hi, Forrest. One practical question from my side, if we have time. When I do the 4th or 5th Kriya, I feel very strong roll-up and some bliss. When I chant Om in each chakra for longer durations to induce cleaning of the chakra and roll-up as instructed in the second training, I can get bliss on each chakra. So eventually large amounts of bliss, but not as strong of a roll-up as in the 4th and 5th Kriya. Tranquil breath and freeze response are there in both cases. Any suggestions on how to maximize both roll-up and bliss? Well, I would do one or the other and go back and forth and get the best of both of those. So you have one practice which is helping you in one way, and you have another practice which is helping you another way. Just go back and forth and enjoy the benefit of both and let them in the Paravasta come together, right? And when you get a stronger and stronger roll-up of consciousness, remember, it's going to minimize the body. So any bliss that I was getting from the chakras is going to minimize a little bit. As I have more and more tranquil breath and freeze, it's going to minimize. I'm going to have more roll-up, and everything that has to do with the body is going to disappear. So maybe start off with that which is giving you bliss, and then move on to that which is giving you a roll-up. And that would be the natural progression of the Kriya. So that's really beautiful. Both of those. Beautiful question. Jeff says, Divine Mother likes her devotees to be juicy. Yes, exactly. Exactly right. Yeah, she was trying to remind me to make your practice alive and don't become, don't become, dry, too dry. Do Navi right then on the cliff. Lucinda says, would you do Navi right then on the cliff? Not necessarily. I would do it beforehand. But if I'm right on the edge of the cliff and I feel some of that fear, and I know my practice is not going to go well, then yes, I might stop and do the Navi. Christine says death can be symbolic, meaning change. That's absolutely right. And that's a very, very good way to see it, instead of seeing it as actual, and which can induce fear. So we just want to overcome the fear. So perfect point, Christine. Thank you. And then Joshua says, I felt that going off the cliff feeling a few weeks ago, still working through it, to be honest. It was indeed kind of scary. I'm going to keep doing Navi. Perfect. Oh, thank you. Linda says the trainings are amazing. Thank you, Linda. And Jeremy says, you said recently that when you expand, you have to let go. but also to do nothing after HRV and Kriya practice? Is it possible to overdo Hakala after the Kriyas? Yes. So you want to expand, which is helping you to let go, but you can also expand for a while and then just do nothing and let go. And that's, now you're doing an immaterial meditation, which is a step way above the actual material meditations, which Kriya Yoga is part of that, right? So I'm stepping above. So first I'm doing the Kriya for the benefit I get from that. Then I'm stepping up into an immaterial meditation for the benefit I get from that. And then I'm purely letting go for the benefit of that. And I'm just stepping up and stepping up and stepping up the practice. And if I get attached to any element, if I get attached to the Kriya or I get attached to the expansion all by itself, then I will not allow myself to continue to go up. You see? Fantastic question, Jeremy. Steve says, thank you for answers to my 3 questions. You're so welcome. I'm so happy that it was helpful. Jeremy says, I've been sick, and every time I sit to meditate, I notice my symptoms are a little less afterwards. I've read that the coherent breathing did a study on inflammatory makers before and after coherent breathing, which is resonant breathing, and noticed a reduction in inflammation, from which they concluded that coherent or resonant breathing enhances immune function. Absolutely. I think of the deep, restful state of meditation as giving the immune system a chance to fight infection, given what people say about chronic stress and immune issues. Absolutely. Breath holds as well are very helpful for the immune system. Nice long breath holds will also awaken the immune system. So absolutely. And in some cases, though, the body is fighting such a big fight that it needs more breath. So it's a both issue, or it can be a both issue. And we made it through all of the questions. Does anybody have a last question?
First, I just have one.
Yeah.
So I was recently reading the Kriya stories, which you had recommended in one of your, I think, earlier talks. So in that book, I think the author keeps talking about this superhuman ability to do some 2,700 Omkar Kriyas in one breath. Is it again the confusion between tranquil breath and no breath? Because considering him speaking about fourth Kriya and being such a high state of Kriya Yogi, him talking about that was a little confusing.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, it's the skill. It's the skill of the meditation, and that's all you need to worry about. Don't worry about these crazy big numbers. And when you increase your CO2 tolerance, then the breath gets easier and easier. So first of all, you need the base of the heart rate variability resonance. And then on top of that, you're building the CO2 tolerance. And those two work together. So I hold my breath, and my body goes through a little bit of stress as I'm holding my breath. And then I let go of the hold, and I allow my breath to relax and go back into whatever it wants to do. And because I have the base of the heart rate variability resonance, the body will choose to go back into heart rate variability resonance by itself. I won't force it. It will let itself do that to recover. So I start out with heart rate variability resonance. I do the breath hold, and the breath itself, once I relax, will send me back into the heart rate variability resonance in order to recover. And now I'm cycling very beautifully these two things. And that creates profound change in the body and in the mind. And so that's what. So when they talk about this huge ability to go so long with the breath hold, the yogi has already been practicing that for some time, and he has accomplished this very, very high CO2 tolerance, where the body goes into the deepest form of the tranquil breath, and the yogi can't find his breath for long periods of time. So I was doing a technique recently, and I held my breath. And while I was in my hold, I went into a trance. Right, I went into that in between state, and I just stayed there for quite a while. And then I remembered, I think I'm not breathing, and I started breathing again. But that whole hold was a very long hold, and I didn't think about it at all. It didn't worry me that I wasn't breathing. It was a very long hold, and it happened because of high CO2 tolerance and this relationship in the body between being able to hold the breath and allowing your body to recover with heart rate variability resonance. So really it's heart rate variability resonance, breath hold, and then on top tranquil breath. And that's the pinnacle that you want, is the tranquil breath. So don't worry about any crazy numbers that any yogi gives you. They're talking about wonderful things, but you have the core. What I'm giving you is the core of what they're talking about.
Okay, got it, Forrest. Got it. Thank you.
You're so welcome. I hope that cleared it up.
Yes, definitely.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining me. Thanks for sticking around. Big hugs to all of you. Have a wonderful weekend. Bye. Thank you. Thank you, Sergio. Thank you. Thank you, Jeremy. Tim, thank you.